Okay, you guys, so I just take a pause here while I explain to you guys what happened. So, as I went through this, when I did the last stage, it came out so strong. I'm easily able to get a workout out of this. Well, I know from experience, I'm a pretty decent sized guy. I'm not that small. Like, I'm not super weak or anything, but I'm not super beef. But I know from experience, I don't get a strained workout from pulling a 40-pound bow. Um, it needs to be 60, 70, 80 pounds, 90 pounds, 100 pounds. Well, I pulled this and it gave me some really impressive poundage. So, what I did was for what it was. At first, it didn't. What it did give me was really great arrow speeds with really heavy arrows that were crap, accurate, by the way, with really light materials, which is what I said I wanted. Light as possible, cheap as possible, way to go. This is it, baby. And I'm not done yet, so I'm just gonna show you. You can see by the coloration here, it's a light blue color, and it should be darker, right? But it's because I'm actually putting it on under tension. And when I put on the paracord, I actually went out of my way to pre-tension it and pull the whole thing and then wrap it that way. And so now I'm locking in that pre-tension once again. So the paracord is actually a fifth layer because there were 4 separate rods. Again, it's the one with 3 carbon fiber rods backing it. And they actually make a nice boom, boom, boom semicircle with the other one in the middle. And they fit real snug together. So it's not a square. Everybody wants to make these a square, guys. Don't do that. I made mine 1 in the back and 1, 2, 3, and you'll have a much stronger bow. But I wanted a strong bow. I'm a pretty strong guy. I wanted something with some strength to it. And this thing is getting ridiculous now. So I'm going to finish taping here. But basically, I'm almost done. I wanted to cover about the same distance on both sides. And I'm going to finish in yellow and do this end and lock everything in. And do the same, but measure the distances and make sure and adjust it and set it up nice. Because this thing is sick. It's so sick. I was going to go ahead with a whole bunch of other designs. I might still do it, but I don't really need to. I mean, this thing's kind of badass. Hold on. All right, now in true DIY fashion, what I wanted was to have black and red, but I will get more black and red later. But for now, that's okay, because in the end, what I want to do, now that I've established that I've pulled on this at least 50 times, 60 times tonight, guys, and it pulls strong, and every time I've adjusted it, it got stronger, much stronger. But I've showed what I've done, so I'm not going to keep on that. But you can see these are done pretty equally. When you look at the bow, it's nice and equal, like where the colors are. And this will be a good way to tell after. We're also going to measure it out to see how close I got just by zipping it by eye. But this doesn't need to be even. And if you think this should be 50-50, it's not, because this has to sit on top of my hand as my arrow rest. And then this has to be the midpoint of the bow from when I pull it, and the arrow sits level. And for me, this is perfect. So that was really nice. And since everything is nice, this is where you lock it all in. So I'm going to make my limbs brighter, and they'll be bright yellow, partly so they stand out. I don't want to make my bow stealth, but right now it's kind of rainbow colors, and I'm going to fix that. I'm going to get rid of the green, and it's going to go from here and go straight out to here, and I'll cut it there and just keep it this short length, and I'll wrap those both out. But the object is to keep these tightly wound together and to make them hold their shape and have that be a dead centered, honest to God, locked in, it ain't going anywhere kind of thing. And the tape helps a lot with that. In addition, there's this kind of tape as well. So in the end, there's a couple different kinds of tape, but there's no tools needed for this. I didn't have to cut any holes. I didn't have to do anything except one. I actually used my Dremel with a drill bit to drill this out a little bit, and I've neglected to mention that in the other 2 videos, so you'll have to do that. Either that or a body reamer. I have one of those too. Either one of those would have worked just fine. But this comes out really nice. This is like a horse bow, guys. And in its strength when you really get into it, believe it or not. As soon as you start to pull, and it is a fairly long bow. I mean, we're not talking short here. I'll give you guys measurements on it in the next video, but in this one, I just wanted to cover the actual building of the bow. So and testing and making sure that it's up to my standard before I go any further, kind of thing. Okay, so now that that's all established and I know I like it, I've left myself a little blue. I'm going to go on to the yellow. I'll be right back. All right, guys, so she is finished. Now you can see there's no more of this stuff covered. It's one of the reasons I wanted to show it to you in detail before I moved on to the next step. Because I've used, well, this was a brand new roll of blue, and there's quite a bit of tape on this. This was a brand new untouched roll of yellow, and I may have taken a foot off it. This is now strong enough that it gives me a workout, believe it or not. And I know I can put 100 pounds of pressure, on this when I'm at full draw. I'm really reefing on this thing. And it's like a horse bow. I mean, it'll stand out so almost straight. It just, like the arch it pulls is ridiculous. If you look, I can really pull on this boat. And when I'm really pulling it full out, it's like this. Now this, I know, isn't 100 pounds of pressure when I'm putting on this. This is the trick, though. It's got that feel to it. I know I'm pulling that hard to get it out that far. The way this is, not so much, but you can go farther. And as soon as you get to about here, it gets brutal in pull. And all of a sudden, I'm really reefing on it to get it to go back another half an inch, but I can. And then if I want, there's another inch or 6, and I can just keep going. And it's like, it just builds so progressively and so ridiculously that I really love it. I mean, it's ideal. So I wanted to build up my handle a little bit. I'm not done yet. I'm sure I will go through the rest of this yellow and probably the rest of the blue in layers and build it up. But I want the outer layer to be the yellow so it's bright and stands out as to where my hand grip is. As you can see, I've got my little arrow protrusion. I like that. It just sits over my hand. And if I have this when it's level, it's perfect. So it actually gives me a level for my grip. See this where it's sagging? Shows me my grip is a little low. And if I bring it so it's high, it's high. And if it's perfect level, it's like it's so dead bang on when it's level. I can really aim down the line like this, which is comfortable for me. And I actually like to have my arrow on my thumb side anyway and rest it on my thumb like that in between. And I can rest it on either side with this setup, which is really nice. But what's shocking me is the actual increase in poundage is not that big when you just pull here. But this basically gives the function of a recurve bow. If you're going to do a DIY bow, this is a really great setup. Now, normally when I do a project, I don't go right from, hey, I've got a prototype to, I want to build 3 more to, okay, I'm stopping. I did. My goal was to just make a good bow. And I did. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to make an 80-pound bow because this is an 80-pound bow. Now what I can do is make a bow that takes 80 pounds to draw it to half, or 90 pounds to draw it to 3/4 or something, and that'll be just fine. But this is actually getting to have a good weight. It's nice and solid, but still very light, very flickable, very workable, and you could even use it as a weapon if you needed to. I mean, it's got real strength to it. And what's interesting is I couldn't break it. I actually genuinely tried to break it. I put my foot in it and pulled up with both hands and tried to rip it apart and break it. I couldn't break it. I must have fired 100 shots with this now, and I can't break it. And it's so nicely weighted now with the tape and everything. Like, it just comes so perfectly to hand, and it's right there. And I mean, it's so nice. And it just gives me that spot to get my grip right every time. And I like it. I mean, I really do like this bow. It's deeply impressive. So what I can do too is put it further down. And you can see as you do this, you're bowing it just that little bit and pulling in tension. And this is all you do. You start with it out here at the tips, and then you pull it in and wrap it tight. And now I could have just kept going and wrapping it tighter and tighter. And the farther up you go, the stronger the poundage. So this is a really cool trick. I wanted to show you guys, but I wanted to finish it before I really tested it. And there's a problem here. This actually came together way faster than I thought. I just kind of whipped this together and then thought, well, I don't really need to worry about arrows. I'm sure it'll be a month before I have a bow anyway that is viable, and it won't be this piece of junk. I put together the lightest poundage one I possibly could because it was all that I had available. But and then I added that fiberglass reinforcement to it. And the way that I built them up around it was really smart because it's the one in the back, as I showed you. The other three are literally laid out in front of it, perfect semicircle. And you can see it when you look at the shape of it. It's not a square like other people's. Mine is a circle. And the way that it's laid out like that makes it much, much stronger because the fiberglass rod is in the dead center at the back. It's actually what your hand rests up against, as I showed, and the three carbon fiber rods that are laid up alongside it are the reinforcements for it, but they're secure. They're so tightly taped together on so many levels that can't come loose now. This is waterproof tape, guys. This is good electrical tape, and it's put under pressure, as you can tell. And there's paracord wrapped, and it's under tension. All of those were done under tension. So there's a lot of energy in this bow, believe it or not. And I can't wait to test it because it's so energetic. I mean, it easily doubled the speed of this going across the room, and that's just for proportion. I mean, this isn't small, guys. This is what I'm shooting. And what's interesting is I also fired this to simulate, and this is like tin. This isn't even aluminum. And I mean, it's got a little bit of weight, but nothing fancy, but it's pretty sweet. Anyway, these are what I've been shooting. I do not have arrows, guys. And if you look at the thickness of this, it's pretty significant, guys. We're talking 1/4 inch thick. And so that's way more than an arrow, but you might think, but really no, this is pretty similar to what an arrow would weigh with the tip and the fletching, even though it's a bit big. It's a nice draw length for this type of longbow type of deal, which is really a short form of longbow. It's more or like a long short bow. It's kind of right in the middle. But really, this is ideal because when you pull it a little, you have a very light pull. But as soon as you pull back to what you would be your normal full pull and go, hey man, I wish this was 20 pounds heavier, just pull 20 pounds harder and you'll see that it is. It's that kind of good. So because it's like that, I know I can pull 100 pounds on this bow. Well, if that's really true, and I can pull 100 pounds on this, which I can, and I've done it, and it's reliable, okay, well, even if it doesn't get the world's most incredible arrow speed, my mission was a success because this little bow now has such a high poundage that I no longer seek to buy a good one. I can just work with this one and dial it in because it is a good one. It's so resilient. I mean, I'm here wondering if I spend hundreds of dollars, will it break? Only I got one right in front of me that works, that won't. It's solid, solid. I couldn't break it. I tried before I wrapped it. And honestly, the wrapping it, this had nothing to do with tension. This is just locking in the tension that's already there on these other strings to make sure nothing moves. And at the same time, improving the look, making it a little brighter, and giving it a little better weight, which it liked. As soon as I gave it that little bit of extra weight, it just, and I like this. I've always liked to have this kind of a thumb kind of, and if I line up my arrow rest just perfectly and I lay one up, you'll see what I mean. I have it built into the paracord here, this little run up and this section. Well, that's made perfect for my fingerprint. And if you look, it literally is. There's another one on the side here. I'm trying to show it so that you'll see it's a complex structure around here. But it's all done with the wrap of the paracord to make it so that for me, when I go thumb up and I brace it and pull back, I like to do that for aiming. It's like I know the arrows. If I'm aiming with the arrow here on the arrow rest, this is how I shoot. And I like that because I'm also holding it out, and then I'll tuck my thumb in kind of thing, and once the arrow's in place. But at first, I like to do this just to make the arrow go into the right place, and then I kind of guide it and aim it. And it's always been part of my thing, so it's a comfortable thing. And it's like, this is such a nice diameter. It doesn't look it, but it's very thin. Now, I'd like to have it twice this thick. So I'm going to start working it out and building it up, but this is pretty much done, guys. I mean, I don't have to do anything else. It gets really good poundage. And the real trick for me now is to get a hold of some good arrows. So I'll be doing that in the future, and I'll show you how accurate she is. I can't wait, man. I'm looking forward to it. Keith out.